have made for Trump and all that haven't even materialized. I talked previously, Zuckerberg promised to stop fact checking on Facebook, and I literally got a fact check on my Instagram from one of his news organizations. I'm only putting the two together because this was the reason that you had Bezos and all these other people stop the endorsement or stand behind Donald Trump at the inauguration. They do it because it's not just about cachet, it's they get something in return. That's what a lot of this is about. And I think quite a lot of that was pretty open before the election. A lot of it is pretty open right now. In terms of will there be pushback and all of this other stuff, I'm not so sure. Not in the current media environment.
There was rules changes that came out at the National Labor Relations Board too. We don't have an element for it, but some of the best things that the Biden administration did for labor organizing have been rolled back. So things like they banned captive audience meetings, which is like just, you force your workers to go and sit through some union busting speech. Captive audience meetings are back. The rule that they put out about banning non-competes, so giving workers more flexibility, more ability to, maneuver and change jobs, whatever. That also is rescinded. So they're, rolling back even some of these things were significant, but even the more minimal changes that were made in favor of workers and labor under the Biden administration are being rolled back. And this again, where, Trump went out in a garbage truck and worked at McDonald's and talked a big game about labor. And there was all this rhetoric, it's going to be different with Republicans and labor unions. Like, you should never have bought that bullshit. Donald Trump has always been a union buster. He's always been a strike breaker. Yeah, but Sean O'Brien seems like he did. So some people did for sure. And this was part of a strategy to convince union workers to drop their longtime association with Democrats and vote for Trump because he was going to be different on labor. And that is very plainly not the case at this point.
It's just one of those where I'm not going to tell a union guy what to do. Clearly, he doesn't give a shit about the NLRB, or he would have voted 100% for Joe Biden and for Kamala Harris. They've got other things that they hold important, cultural stuff, wars, manufacturing, tariffs, general vibe, and they decided that's important. I think it was pretty clear.
But don't you think having Sean O'Brien at the RNC was an attempt to convince them that Trump would be different on labor?
No, because Sean O'Brien smartly looked at the poll of his own voters and said, oh shit, half of these guys are going to vote for Trump anyway, and I want to burn any ability of me to be actually to get in the room. You want to be shut out of the door, or at least have one foot in that door. I'd rather have at least one foot if my job is to represent the union. He can't control what all of his people do.
No, but he could have made the case. He's in a leadership position, so you do what a leader does, and you make the case for why, listen, you can vote however you want. If guns or gays or whatever is most important to you, you vote how you want. But in terms of labor issues, here's the track record. It's pretty clear cut with the Biden administration versus the previous Trump administration. And so, I think he comes off looking like a fool because they're union busting even more aggressively than they did before. But that's not even my point. My point is that the whole reason that Trump and the RNC invited Sean O'Brien to speak at the RNC was to try to create an impression that they were going to be different on labor when clearly they are not different on labor whatsoever.
I don't know. I think people who look more foolish are those who constantly preach at their own union members and tell them what to do, and then they keep not voting for them, or they're moving more in the Republican direction.
But isn't it their job to... It's not telling people what to do.
No, I know.
But the whole idea is if you are in a leadership position, explaining the very clear difference in the track record on labor-specific issues between Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and the Trump administration. I think it is your job to explain those differences. People can do with that what they want, but to equivocate and pretend he's going to be good on labor, or actually it's the Democrats who are worse, that was just a lie. So then you're just lying to your members and you're confusing them about the choice. You're not helping them to make a better decision.
I don't think that. And again, this is the problem with union leadership. They've been, sucking at the Democratic teat for 40 years or whatever, and they've lost all their membership.
Saagar,
and they keep endorsing
union busters. Who are they supposed to support?
Also are endorsing ceasefires in Gaza, which is pretty stupid, or ceasefire or BLM protests, or any of this. Keep on signing on to socially liberal causes, and lo and behold, your membership starts voting.
What I'm arguing is the exact opposite of that, Saagar, which is that you're saying that, they should just, because their members are more culturally conservative, they should focus on those cultural values. What I'm saying is actually they needed to be more specific about the economic, labor-related, directly related to their unions. And that's where I think there was a real failure to communicate from Sean O'Brien specifically the very clear differences when it comes to union organizing. I mean, the National Labor Relations Board under Trump now is not even defending its own right to exist. It has been gutted so that it cannot even function because they don't have a quorum. They're probably illegally removed from, this is an ongoing court case, but in any case, they've gutted it, so it cannot even advance any of the claims of union busting and other illegal behavior. Like, and this was all very predictable, to your point,
yes,
about people knowing what they were getting. And if you weren't telling your union members that, if you weren't making that clear, and again, people can do with that information whatever they want. If there are other issues that are more important to them, that's fine. But if you aren't making that clear, you are just lying to your members, you are confusing them, and you are failing at your job.
I bring it back to the government point I made. Is it because they lost so much credibility with their leadership or with their member base, which is basically what has happened, with the divergence of the leadership basically just being careerist Democrats, and then the rest of their guys, 2016 onwards, voting more and more for Trump, they don't have any trust individually on that basis. The reason I'll defend O'Brien is because O'Brien was trying to hold on to some credibility with an administration which won the popular vote, all 7 swing states, and not willing to say 100% or 50% of his union members, but a very good number of them. So, you have to follow where your people are. You're a representative of them. You don't just work for some NLRB worship. Like, you have to actually clearly listen to your union voting base and say, well, clearly these guys like Trump, so I need to figure out a way to work with them. So I just think it's the same structural problem from the government direction. And on the union front, I just come back to this. On the NLRB, if people really cared, the union voters, about NLRB, and they probably know more about it even than I do, than a lot of these other people who talk about it online, and they still voted for Trump, what does that tell you? They don't actually care that much.
But Saagar,
it's not a number one issue. It never will be.
Union, belonging to a union is still one of the biggest indicators of voting Democrat.
Yes.
So obviously it does still matter to a lot of union members. And all I'm saying is that if you were not explaining the differences between these two candidates when it comes to union issues specifically, then you were not being honest about the choice in this election. And listen, he wanted to preserve his access and his ability to get in the room, whatever. Congratulations, you did it. You were invited to the inauguration. You're on Trump's good list. You accomplished your goal. But if your goal was to help people understand what the differences were between these two candidates on labor issues specifically, you did not accomplish that. You confused people. You were not honest about what the clear difference was. And now you've got, and this is important, especially for the Teamsters, because they're trying to organize Amazon. One of the things that matters a lot for that is that the drivers, Amazon drivers, be classified as employees of Amazon. That was something that the Biden administration, Biden-Harris administration, was in favor of, and the Trump administration is opposed to. So you've just set back even your own organizing efforts in terms of trying to unionize Amazon. So, I'm also just not gonna buy that, this was some noble attempt to represent his members. I think he wanted to be in the room. I think he wanted that invite to the inauguration. I think he wanted to be buddy here, and he got his wish.
I'd rather be him than some idiot some idiot preaching next to Hakeem Jeffries.
I wouldn't, because at least I didn't lie to my members.
I don't think he lied to his members. He didn't endorse anybody.
Yeah, he was I think it was very deceitful, the way that he portrayed the Democrats as the real opposition to labor. And I'm not here to cape for Democrats. Lord knows I've been critical as well. But if you look over the past number of decades, there's a reason why the unions at this point do typically always endorse Democrats. It's because Republicans hate them and want them to not exist. Like Elon Musk, who is in charge of our government now, doesn't think the National Labor Relations Board should exist and hates unions and thinks they should all be illegal. So you shouldn't back that person because they hate you and they think you should die.
I think that the Teamsters in the long run will probably be vindicated because they're going to get something out of the Trump administration that the rest of these guys whispering in Hakeem Jeffries' ears are not going to get. And that's probably better than absolutely nothing. So I don't blame Sean O'Brien.
They got a Department of Labor nominee secretary who has a very bad AFL-CIO
Okay, we're
voting
20
for,
we're not
but
even
supported the
1
PRO
month
Act,
into the Trump
but
administration.
is completely irrelevant now that the National Labor Relations Board is gutted and headed to the Supreme Court to be deemed unconstitutional.
We are not even 1 month into the Trump administration.
Yeah, it's already clear.
Over a 4 year,
already really
over
clear.
a 4 year period, I am absolutely certain O'Brien will be much